Hello, I'm Nikhil.
And I'm Shankar. This is Chai Across Generations. This is episode 12, Our Listeners' Voices.
We're excited to share a very special episode with you today. For the first time, you'll hear an audio montage of a diverse set of our listeners from different backgrounds, generations, and locations. We asked our listeners to answer the question, what's your favorite episode and why, as a look back on our first set of 11 episodes.
Thank you to each and every one of you who took the time to record and share your soundbite. It means a lot to both of us. We really enjoyed hearing from you and really appreciate the engagement.
Yes, this is the perfect chai. It's pure gold to get to hear people's voices and their unique perspectives. I find this community so rich and interesting, and that really comes through in this episode.
So let's dive in.
Hi, my name is Tanzita, and I'm a 31-year-old listener based out of Phoenix, Arizona. I would say my favorite episode of Chai Across Generations has been the first episode, the Valentine's Day and dating one, for a couple of reasons. One, I'm a hopeless romantic, and of course I'm going to love anything related to dating and romance. Another being that it's kind of like not a taboo topic, but one that can often present itself as like the first or one of the first few times when younger generations are trying to navigate some challenging conversations with their elders or their family members for the first few times. And some of those conversations may continue later on in life too, especially as like some of us continue on and further progressing in life, and people start having conversations with their family members and elders about things like settling down, getting married, and things like that. I find that these types of conversations kind of continue, and it does tie into like further episodes related to things like how do you define the good life. It does segue into things like communication and things like that. And I really do find that like all of the episodes of Chai Across Generations do tie really well into one another. But it was a very wonderful like first episode in my opinion.
Hi, Nikhil and Shankar. I'm Shekhar Mahaligam here. I'm 59 years old and I live in India. I've been an ardent fan of your podcast, Chai Across Generation, for the past several weeks. But as requested by you, I am unable to pick any one episode as the best episode I liked. This is because I found each of the episodes very insightful and thought-provoking. The podcast have enabled me to reflect on the several conversations and conflicts I've had with people from other generations. My parents' generation, for example, my parents, uncles and aunts, my own generation, my siblings and cousins, and my children's generation, my own children, my nephews, nieces and others. Thanks to the podcast, I now seem to have a set of tools at my disposal to consciously and effectively deal with any future conversations or conflicts I would have with people in my life. The topics you have chosen for the discussion in the podcast, Valentine's Day, What's a Good Life, Mental Health, Communication, are very relevant to the current times. By sharing the perspective of your respective generations, Nikhil and Shankar, you have done a great service to listeners like me. I look forward to future episodes of this podcast. Perhaps you both could discuss what the following mean to you in your respective generations. What is marriage, family, religion, spirituality, politics, happiness, etc. What do they mean to you? Thank you so much for your podcast, and I wish you good luck in all the future episodes. Bye.
Hey, Nikhil and Shankar. Big fan of the podcast here. My name is Mukund. I'm calling in from Florida in the US, but I'm actually from Chennai in India. It's tough for me to pick a favorite episode because I believe I've enjoyed almost all of your episodes equally, and I found a lot of meaning from them, a lot of usefulness in my own journey as I've been trying to communicate across generations. And rather than picking a favorite episode, I've picked some of my favorite moments, and I hope that's okay. So in line with communication, first I'd like to share was something you said in the latest communication series about being too quick to label. And I've found myself guilty of that, jumping to judge and to change someone rather than trying to understand. And I've found a lot of value in just listening and trying to understand rather than to place my own viewpoints onto somebody else's behaviors. And really appreciate you for sharing that insight. I also really loved your episode on chai because I consider myself a Pakka Tamaran and I love my daily filter coffee, and my day doesn't start without the morning filter coffee. So listening to your stories about chai, especially coming from two Tamil South Indians, was refreshing and eye-opening and made me at least think about trying some more chai someday. Probably won't replace coffee for me. And finally, I really loved the episode where Nikhil, your parents, popped in. It was so refreshing and so impactful to hear those voices and those accents on Spotify, on a podcast that has a global reach. It to me sounded a lot like my people from my own family speaking, and I really, really enjoyed that. Really love that, and would love to see more of those kind of interactions as you guys develop your episodes. Love what you're doing. Please keep it up. I think this is so useful for our community. And I will be eagerly listening and waiting for future episodes. So thanks again, and hope all is well.
Hello, my name is Jack. Not coincidentally, I was introduced to your podcast by my best friend who happens to be Nikhil's father. If I had to select a favorite episode, it would be impossible not to include the entire series on communication. In reality, all the episodes thus far involve communication at some level. In general, the subject matter, in my view, transcends Indian culture and has universal appeal to thoughtful people of all backgrounds and ethnicities. In your discussion about the family dynamic, we can all relate to the sensitivities and sometimes difficulties that occur in intergenerational communication. I have enjoyed the sense of mutual respect, and I think freedom in how Nikhil and Shankar relate to one another. That freedom will be made much more difficult if they were encumbered by the emotional charge of being father and son. Please keep up the fine work. Many of us, no matter our background, will embrace your talks as a catalyst to work towards new levels of personal growth in our own lives. I wish you both continued success. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rama Nilakanta. Thanks for your podcast, Chai Across Generations. I think it is much needed and very much appreciated. Now, to your question as to which was my favorite podcast so far, I would choose the one on communication. Communication is at the crux of building relationships and sustaining them. In fact, I would say it is at the crux of human existence. But the one that really impressed me or that resonated with me in this podcast was when Nikhil talked about his wanting to be heard by his parents and not needing their advice. I've got a daughter, and I've had many such conversations with her. Over time, we have developed a strategy where she tells me what she expects from me when she has something to share with me. So she tells me upfront, Ma, I want to vent. I don't need any advice. I don't need you to fix things for me. And I have learned pretty slowly, and sometimes I've had to bite my tongue, but I have learned to keep quiet and to listen. And I sometimes wonder if this has anything to do with wanting your space, wanting your private space. I think that would be an awesome topic to have a podcast on, because that is another issue that my daughter and I tend to butt heads over. Thank you very much for all that you guys are doing. I look forward to every Monday. Bye-bye.
Hey guys, so I'm Bharat, 21, and I'm Nikhil's younger cousin. So I have two favorite episodes actually. So the first one would have to be my first one of my favorites would have to be the one with my aunt and uncle in it. It was the episode about chai, episode 5. And I guess what I liked in that was my aunt's story about my grandmother, which really moved me. It was a story about like how my grandmother like used to wake up early in the morning, milk the cow herself, and make the chai for everyone in the house. And I think that like really moved me. And chai has always been something that has like brought us families together. It used to be like a perfect relaxation time. Even when we didn't realize what it did to us as a family, I guess it always was something that we always needed, but never like really knew that we wanted. So yeah, that would be my favorite episode if it wasn't for Shankar's clock analogy on episode 6 about mental health. Mm, so what Shankar basically said was that like mental health is like a quadrant, like a person on 12 to 3 is in a quadrant, 3 to 6 is in a quadrant, 6 to 9 is in a quadrant, and 9 to 12 is in a quadrant. And the person in 9 to 12 quadrant is not very different from a person in 1 to 3, 12 to 3 kind of quadrant. So I've always thought about that, but I could never really like articulate it myself. So yeah, when Shankar said that, like, I was like, that's what I've been trying to put in words all these days. Yeah, so those two would have to be my favorite episodes.
Hey, Nikhil and Shankar, thank you for your weekly podcasts. I thoroughly enjoy your weekly casual discussions that you have over a cup of chai. By the way, I'm Nagarajan and I'm in my mid 40s. I think I'm in the right age where I can consume and understand both of your viewpoints on all your episodes. Okay, now out of so many episodes, my favorite episode is the one where you spoke about dating. Why? Why? Because maybe my son is in the right age where I may need to start to talk about these topics that I would have not opened up if I were in my home country. Definitely. Um, Dating is definitely a loaded topic. Not only in Shankar's generation, even in my generation, it is not easy to talk about. And I appreciate the way you both handled it. Nikhil, you highlighted superbly about how confusing that time was and how difficult it was for you to bring up this dating topic to your parents. Knowing everyone in the family, I was really able to visualize the conversation you had with your father. Um, I vote for this episode. I like this episode mainly because I like the topics that were touched during the discussion. Um, which actually showed a different perspective in many ways. Like you mentioned about peer pressure in school, relationship skills, and dating with the responsibility. Responsible dating, right? And how to strike a balance between freedom and restriction, and how to be successful or thinking about being successful while exploring relationship. All these topics made this conversation more interesting. uh, thank you for this opportunity, and um, I wish you both all the best, and I eagerly wait for your next episode. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you to all of our listeners who contributed to this episode. It's so special to hear from all of you, and I can't wait to do it again sometime. Shankar, some people picked moments rather than episodes, but overall, it sounds like the four main episodes that folks mentioned amongst their favorites are episode 2 about Valentine's Day and dating, episode 5 about chai, episode 6 about mental health, and episode 11 about communication. What was it like for you to hear the montage?
I felt extremely gratified that we've positively touched so many listeners, and I'm very grateful to our listeners for this feedback. Each clip was really thoughtful and also thought provoking. I'm still perhaps a little surprised as to how popular that Valentine's Day episode is.
Yeah, that was a big one. People love talking about dating, and who knows, maybe it's a topic we come back to at some point. I felt really humbled and excited listening to all of the clips. When we started the podcast, Shankar, I remember saying to you that if we can make a difference in even one person's life with this show, it will all have been worth it. So I'm really glad that we've been able to connect with our listeners, whether that's in the form of stories that resonate with them or tools that help them with communications with their loved ones of other generations. I also just wanted to echo Jack's point that a lot of what we talk about is relevant to people beyond the South Asian community too. We have a number of listeners who aren't South Asian, and it makes me feel really human and connected to know that a lot of these themes are universally resonant.
Absolutely. I will agree with that. I think that's been a very nice part of outcome of our effort here. And I also think our listeners have been very gracious in their feedback as we were learning the ropes of starting our first podcast, and I'm very appreciative of that. I feel this first set of 11 episodes was a nice foray into some rich topics, but also an exploration in terms of how we actually conduct our conversations. So I'm excited to continue our conversations and to future engagement with our audience in upcoming episodes.
Yeah, off mic, you and I have talked about how there's a big difference between episode 1 and, say, episode 8 or 9 in the way that we show up and in the way that the episode sounds. So thank you to our listeners for being kind and generous with us as we grow as podcasters. And I agree with you. There are a lot of really interesting themes that came up as well that we might explore in the future. Things like family, friends, marriage. We have so much more to explore, and I'm excited to be doing it with you.
Thanks, Nikhil. Yes, I know there's a very long list of topics that we've jotted down, and we could go on for a very long time just going down that list. But
we just might.
Yeah, why not? As long as we have the energy, it'll lead us to the right place, I'm sure.
Exactly.
Well, as always, subscribe to our podcast and please leave us a review on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks, everyone. See you all next time.